When they got back within the secured perimeter, Drone Girl pulled the rig off to the side and the other vehicles went on their way. There was a brief exchange on comms before they got more than a block separated. AAR and debrief in 30, over. Copy. See you in 30, out. Two girls turned in their swivel chairs to look back through the sleeper cab into the back of the attached container. There was a faint rattling in the back as something fell off a shelf and bonked onto the corrugated steel floor. Corrugated diamond cut steel floor. It was too dark to see. Corrugated brushed steel floor. It was too dark to see, as they were driving. All the lights automatically turn off if they aren't needed. Nines shined a flashlight, which Nines had a flashlight which she had grabbed off the dash. She couldn't get it earlier when she was looking under the truck because she dipped down too fast to think to grab it. Nines made a mental note to herself to keep the flashlight on her and accessible at all times in the future. The powerful light blasted luminescence down the corridor of racks and control stations. Finally, at the end of refracting two eyes at its half-power setting, the eyes blinked, and Nines moved the flashlight beam off slightly so it wouldn't be hurting the creature. Nines' roommate had a pet before, and she remembered how to try to get a dog to like her and trust her. She scrummaged around for some leftover rations and found a chicken nugget that she was saving to parse out for some cats that she'd been seeing run around the area. The cats were safe on the coast, obviously, and probably were the happiest cats in the world. The wolves and coyotes were all getting beat back in record numbers, along with balancing out the deer and elk herds, and with few vehicles, cats were making a comeback. They were still getting trapped and neutered by the local vets, of course, something they had capacity to do now that they never did before. The girl cats were left alone as long as they were healthy, so the population could somewhat keep going without exploding out of control. Still made Nines happy to feed them, although it was lost on her the irony of feeding them a chicken nugget when the cats weren't supposed to be eating the chickens. So Nines broke the chicken nugget in half and tossed half down the corridor poorly. It got hung up in something not even halfway down the corridor. The eyes went sort of an angle like, what was the point of that? It pointed its nose in the air, but wouldn't come any closer. Nines broke the last half of the chicken nugget in two pieces and tried to toss the half of that. It bounced and landed roughly halfway. The drone girl realized the critter might not be coming out because of the light and told Nines to shut the light off so the creature may relax. Nines shut it off, which in retrospect was good because the light was getting warm and it was wasting valuable battery life. Drone Girl noted that it wasn't trying to dig, which was a good sign that it hadn't mutated. After a few minutes, they heard some munching and crunching and a pause, and more of their stuff crashing and another munching and crunching. It didn't seem to be scared of noise, which was probably less interesting than it actually seemed at the time, although it was probably a good trait. About then, something outside distracted Nines and Drone Girl, and they looked outside to see a hawk catch a rabbit. It was over fairly quick, and the hawk took off with the rabbit to wherever its nest probably was. Both Nines and Drone Girl cringed in that brutal nature sort of way, then relaxed. Moments later, Nines felt the nibbling at her finger as the creature was trying to nibble the rest of the chicken nugget out of her hand that she'd forgot about. She shrieked a girly shriek, which made Drone Girl shriek, then smacked Nines for yelling in the truck. That triggered a scampering noise out of hand's reach, where there was more munching than a yipping noise. Barely inside the light coming in from the windows, there appeared to be a purple and black puppy dog. It had a tiny tail and then a disproportionately large torso and head for its body size. The puppy was proportioned completely wrong. Drone Girl noted to herself how the puppy could run fast at being so lopsided and criticized the seemingly poor design. Before long, she was taking notes on her notepad that was in reference to the dog drone she'd been trying to design earlier. Nines was oblivious about this, though, and wanted to play with the new puppy. It seemed to be happy and wanted to play. Nines threw a carton down the aisle of the truck, and the dog creature brought it back. The carton had a few more holes than before and was a little slobbery, but it did return. Nines grabbed it, but the puppy didn't let go. There was a moment of a staring contest, then the puppy released, as if to say, "Oh, I'm only kidding." It ran back down a few paces, then sat down. Nines threw it, and the container didn't come back this time. The puppy destroyed it. "You're cleaning that up." "Aw, can we keep it?" "Well, yeah, how can I say no to you? Obviously, though, you have to clean it up. Clean up after it and take care of it." "Well, yeah, obviously." Nines made a face at Drone Girl, who made a face right back. It had been about 30 minutes, so Drone Girl punched the truck into gear, and away they went for debrief and lessons learned. Somewhat into the debrief. "Yeah, you can keep it, and yeah, it can stay here, but it has to go through quarantine at the vet." The two girls cheered, and everyone else looked around uncomfortably as if to say, "Wow, a dog. We have tons of dogs." The security chief restated, however, that this was no normal dog. It was a dog out of the DMZ, which essentially made it some kind of miracle that it wasn't gone or mutated. Someone else had lost a dog recently and wanted to blame the new puppy for it. The security chief spoke sternly. "Listen, as if this dog somehow wasn't already abundantly clear. This dog could have the cure, or at very least house some clues as to how we can prevent our dogs from getting sick." Everyone looked around as if this was mumbo-jumbo. "If anything happens to the dog and we get credible cross-verified evidence, that'll be it. Got it?" Nines was sad inside that the guys had to be mean sometimes, but that's how you set the law straight with other guys sometimes. There didn't seem to be any resentment, because it seemed like the owner wouldn't want anyone else to lose their dogs too. But then he seemed to have another thought, like, what if this dog causes more dogs to be lost? What then? What if somehow summons more virus dogs? He seemed to be able to keep it buckled down, though. Seemed to be able to realize in his own head how stupid that logic was. Having the dog here meant someone else would be happy, and the vet would quarantine it anyway, so everything would be on the up and up. He nodded to himself and seemed to be content in a genuinely and unmaligned way. He realized Nines was watching him through his thought process, but she looked away in time, as if watching a bug floating around in the air. He shrugged and went back to listening to the debrief. Drone Girl was already tinkering with some new thing based on what she was thinking about the time, and before long the meeting was over. It was sort of okay that Nines and Drone Girl were being more observant than participatory after all, because they knew what had gone on and didn't need to hear what they already knew. They should have listened, but it'd all be in the next debrief anyway. 18. Back out. Southwest DMZ, weeks later. Summer. Nine's puppy had been cleared, and she immediately named the puppy Miracle. Drone Girl insisted this was a dumb name, and then Nines reminded her that most of the animals come into their own name sooner or later. Drone Girl would only shrug, and she named her drones immediately what their intended purpose was. Nines countered with, "Sometimes the drones have unintended bonuses to other situations that may warrant a name change." This seemed to resonate with Drone Girl, but they kept teasing each other anyway. The puppy seemed to like the banter. The puppy was a she. After the vet cleaned the puppy up, it was definitely 2 shades of purple and black. It had a strange camo-like pattern that helped it to survive as long as it had. It had in fact been infected, but was a carrier instead of a transmitter. Being able to separate the two was the key for the local vet, who got with some biologists and Malays, and they created a solution that disrupted the infected. They put the solution in packets of food they called doggy treats, and the job of the recon team was to drop the doggy treats off to hopefully cull the infected population. It didn't seem to have any effect on Miracle or normal dogs. Nobody was ready to potentially sacrifice their dog yet by giving them the vaccine. Call it antibodies or something instead of vaccine. Antibodies. There we go. And intentionally infecting them with the virus. It seemed way beyond cruel. So out the team went, dropping off the doggy treats. And the idea was to get a few right at the beginning, a few in the middle, and then a few at the very outer rim, close to wherever the other team was assumed to be operating. With any luck, they'd be able to make contact with someone on the other side, so they could finally open up comms. From what they'd heard from various subdivisions, they sounded like pros. Something about pulling the invading force over and around, exhausting its resources, and saving the bulk of the mid-southwest of the state. They still had a problem with tweakers sometimes, but that they had taken care of most of them. Nobody wanted to know what that meant due to plausible deniability, but there had been drug paraphernalia and signs of smaller groups of nomads wandering aimlessly. Perhaps they were outcasts and living off drugs or something. Nobody knew. Presumably they'd know where to find drugs and make more drugs, and it'd be a mess. The recon team asked about where they might be, as they could possibly call in the strike team on them, but nobody knew. The recon team ended up searching all summer, and always seemed to be 1 or 2 steps behind. They were, however, able to fix the bulk of the dog population, and all the rest of the dogs were happy dogs. Or so they thought.